Your nervous system may not be exhausted because life is too heavy right now. It may be exhausted because it has spent too long preparing for emotional pain before anything even happens. So even peaceful moments don't fully feel peaceful anymore. Part of you stays alert, waiting, bracing, anticipating tension before it arrives. And lately, you may be realizing you no longer want to live like that. Take a slower breath for a moment. Not to force yourself to relax, just to notice how much tension your body may still be carrying quietly. Because lately, your nervous system may be reacting to life like every moment requires emotional preparation. Every conversation, every delay, every silence. And after enough time, that constant internal bracing starts feeling normal. But something has been changing recently. You may notice you're becoming less willing to emotionally live in survival mode all the time. Less willing to constantly rush yourself internally. Less willing to abandon your own peace just to keep functioning. That shift matters, especially under this post-Taurus New Moon energy. Because this phase is not trying to push you harder. It's trying to teach your system that slowing down may finally be safe enough to happen. The Taurus New Moon did not arrive to make your life louder. It arrived to show you how exhausted your inner world has become from constant emotional overstimulation. That's why this energy feels different. You may feel less emotionally available for chaos lately, less willing to chase urgency, less interested in environments that leave your nervous system tense for hours afterward often. And part of that shift is physical. Your body is beginning to recognize what peace actually feels like. Not perfect peace, just moments where your system doesn't feel trapped inside emotional survival mode constantly. That awareness changes people slowly. Because once your nervous system experiences even small moments of regulation, it becomes harder to keep pretending certain emotional patterns feel healthy. Especially the ones that constantly require you to abandon yourself internally, just to maintain them. Some people become so used to emotional survival mode, they stop recognizing how exhausted they actually are. Not because they're weak, because tension became normal. Always thinking ahead, always preparing emotionally, always expecting instability before life even has a chance to unfold. And eventually, the nervous system adapts to that pressure. It learns how to function inside exhaustion. But functioning is not the same thing as feeling safe. That's the deeper realization arriving now. You may notice lately that your body reacts differently to emotionally draining situations. Certain conversations leave you depleted faster. Certain people make your chest tighten instantly. Certain environments feel heavy before anything is even said. Your nervous system notices first, long before the mind fully explains why. And maybe part of your healing now is finally trusting those signals instead of overriding them constantly. But this phase is not asking you to fear everything that feels emotionally difficult. That's important to remember. Healing does not mean avoiding every uncomfortable moment. And nervous system awareness does not mean isolating yourself from life completely. Sometimes growth still feels uncertain. Sometimes honest conversations still feel uncomfortable. Sometimes healing requires you to stay present instead of emotionally escaping immediately. The difference now is awareness. You're beginning to notice which situations create temporary discomfort and which ones repeatedly disconnect you from yourself entirely. Those are not the same thing. And under this Taurus energy, your system is becoming more honest about what it can sustainably carry long term. Not from fear, from self-respect. That's a very different kind of strength. You may be noticing that your definition of peace is changing now. Not into emotional perfection, into sustainability. You no longer want a future that constantly costs your nervous system everything. And honestly, that realization changes your priorities quietly. You begin craving slower mornings, healthier conversations, cleaner emotional environments. Not because life should become smaller, because your inner world is becoming less willing to survive inside constant emotional noise. That's what this post-new moon phase is trying to rebuild. A healthier relationship with your own energy. A future where your body does not need to stay emotionally armored just to make it through the day. And maybe, for the first time in a long while, part of you is beginning to believe that kind of life might actually be possible. There may be moments now where your body finally exhales without you realizing it immediately. A quieter morning, a slower evening drive, a few seconds where your mind stops racing ahead and simply rests inside the present moment. Those moments matter more than you think, because healing is not always dramatic. Sometimes it sounds like silence, finally feeling safe again. And lately, your nervous system may be searching for more of those moments naturally. Less noise, less urgency, less emotional pressure to constantly prove or protect yourself. Just space, breathing room, a softer internal rhythm that allows your body to stop carrying the future all at once. Maybe that slower rhythm is not weakness. Maybe it's the beginning of your system finally learning how to feel safe inside life again. What's changing now may not look dramatic externally yet, but internally, your relationship with yourself is beginning to shift. You're becoming more aware of what drains you emotionally, more honest about what your nervous system can no longer normalize, and more protective of the peace you've worked hard to reconnect with. That's important, because healing often begins long before visible transformation appears. It begins in quieter places, a calmer reaction, a healthier boundary, a slower response. a moment where you choose rest instead of emotional overextension. Those smaller shifts reshape a life slowly, especially under Taurus energy. Because Taurus does not rush growth. It roots growth deeply enough to actually last. And maybe that's exactly what your inner world has been needing all along. So today, you do not need to force yourself to have everything figured out. You do not need to emotionally rush your healing. And you do not need to keep carrying tension like it's the only way to stay prepared for life. Your nervous system is allowed to soften gradually. Your body is allowed to rest. Your future does not need to be built through constant emotional exhaustion anymore. Not every moment needs urgency. Not every silence means something is wrong. And not every pause needs to be filled immediately. Sometimes, peace begins the moment you stop fighting yourself quite so hard internally. And maybe right now, that softer way of living is exactly what your inner world has been trying to guide you toward. And if you're still here, listening, your nervous system may have needed this slower space more than you realized. Because in a world that constantly asks people to move faster, choosing softness can quietly become an act of healing. So thank you for spending these moments here, for slowing down long enough to reconnect with yourself a little more honestly. And maybe tonight, you don't need to solve everything. Maybe it's enough to simply let your body breathe easier than it did before. More grounding will come. More clarity will come. For now, just let yourself rest inside this quieter moment. And when you're ready, I'll meet you again in the next chapter.